Let me ask you something. You've probably seen it before. A beat-up Toyota Corolla or a dusty Honda Civic with over 300,000 miles on the odometer, still running smooth, still starting on the first crank, still driving like it has something left to prove. And then you've also seen a car, maybe even an expensive one, that's completely done by 90,000 miles, burning oil, rattling on cold mornings, eating repair bills for breakfast. And most people look at that and think, well, Japanese cars are just built better. And here's the thing, they're not wrong, but they're also not entirely right. Because what I'm going to tell you today is something most people never hear, and it changes the way you think about your car forever. The real secret behind engines that reach 400,000, 500,000, even 600,000 miles isn't just the engineering. It's not the metallurgy of the pistons or some special sauce in the factory assembly line. It's something far more human than that. It's habit. It's discipline. It's the way the people who own these cars treat them day after day, year after year, in ways that most drivers in the rest of the world simply never do. And once you understand this, you're going to look at your own car differently. You're going to understand exactly why some engines die young and why others just keep going. Now, I want you to picture Japan for a moment. Not the bullet trains or the neon signs. I mean the everyday car culture. In Japan, there's something called the Shaken system. It's a vehicle inspection program that's mandatory every 2 years for cars older than 3 years. And it's not a quick 5-minute check. It's thorough. It covers dozens of inspection points: brakes, lights, emissions, suspension, and yes, the engine. If your car fails, you fix it or you don't drive it. There's no gray area, no wiggle room. Every car owner in Japan knows this deadline is coming and they prepare for it. They don't wait for something to break, they stay ahead of it. And that mindset, that proactive, almost military-level discipline around maintenance, is one of the biggest reasons Japanese cars tend to last so much longer when they're maintained by Japanese owners. But let's bring this closer to home, because that system is about more than just government inspection requirements. It reflects a deeper attitude. Japanese mechanics have a phrase that roughly translates to treat the problem when it whispers, not when it screams. And that idea alone could save you thousands of dollars and years of engine life. Because here's what actually happens to most engines that die early. It's almost never one catastrophic thing. It's a series of small, ignored whispers that build up over time until the engine simply can't take it anymore. A slightly rough idle that gets dismissed. A tiny oil spot on the driveway that gets ignored. A subtle change in the way the car sounds during a cold start that gets explained away. Each one of those things, on its own, is manageable and cheap to fix. Together, over time, they become a $4,000 repair bill or a totaled engine. Let me talk about oil for a minute, because this is where I see more engine damage than almost anything else, and it's also where I hear the most myths. People talk a lot about which brand of oil is best, whether to use synthetic or conventional, 5W30 versus W20. And look, those conversations have their place. But here's the uncomfortable truth that most oil marketers don't want you to focus on. The type of oil matters far less than when you change it. I've seen engines running basic conventional oil that lasted 400,000 miles because the owner changed it religiously every 4,000 miles. And I've seen engines running premium full synthetic oil that were sludged up and damaged by 80,000 miles because the owner stretched every oil change to 15,000 miles and sometimes longer. Oil breaks down. It gets contaminated with combustion byproducts, tiny metal particles, moisture, and carbon deposits. Once that happens, it stops protecting and starts abrading. No matter how good that oil was when it went in, once it's degraded, it becomes the enemy of your engine. Timing matters more than type, period. And speaking of timing, let me tell you about a fleet manager I once spoke with. A guy who managed a fleet of over 200 vehicles for a logistics company, mostly Toyotas and Hondas, some of them racking up insane mileage every single year. He told me that the biggest difference between the vehicles in his fleet that lasted and the ones that caused problems wasn't the model or the year or even the driver. It was the service schedule. The vehicles that got serviced on time, every time, without exception, consistently outlasted the ones that were serviced late by even just a few thousand miles. He started tracking it obsessively and found that vehicles with even slightly inconsistent service intervals showed measurably more wear at higher mileages. That stuck with me, because this wasn't one mechanic's opinion or one anecdote. This was 200 vehicles over several years. Consistency is everything. Now let's talk about how you actually drive, because this is the part most people overlook completely. They think maintenance is just about what happens in the shop, but what happens every single time you turn that key and pull out of your driveway is also maintenance, or it's abuse, depending on how you do it. And one of the most damaging things you can do to any engine happens in the first few minutes of every single drive. When your engine is cold, and I mean fresh cold, first start of the day, the oil has drained down into the oil pan overnight. For the first few seconds after startup, your engine is running with minimal lubrication on critical surfaces. The clearances between metal parts are tighter because the metal hasn't expanded yet from heat. The oil is thicker and slower to circulate. This is the most vulnerable your engine ever is. And what do most people do? They start the car and immediately pull out onto the road and accelerate to highway speeds. Or worse, they rev the engine hard to warm it up faster. Both of those things are causing real, measurable damage every single time. What you should do instead is something much simpler. Start the car, give it 30 seconds to a minute at idle. Just let the oil circulate, let the pressure build, let the temperature start to rise, and then drive gently for the first 5 to 10 minutes. Not crawling, not timid, just easy. Smooth acceleration, moderate RPMs. You're not babying the car, you're protecting it during the one window where it's genuinely vulnerable. In Japan, this kind of gentle warm-up behavior is second nature for a lot of drivers. It's not written down anywhere. It's just something that gets passed down, part of the culture around cars. And over 150,000 miles, that habit alone makes a meaningful difference in engine wear. Let's talk about acceleration and driving style more broadly, because this connects directly to engine longevity in ways that are easy to understand once you see them. Every time you floor the accelerator from a stop, you're putting enormous stress on your pistons, connecting rods, crankshaft, and valve train all at once. You're demanding peak performance from an engine that was cruising comfortably a second ago. The fuel-air mixture spikes, combustion temperatures spike, mechanical loads spike. Done occasionally, it's fine. That's what engines are built to handle. Done constantly, day after day, especially before the engine is fully warmed up, it accelerates wear on every single moving part. Smooth, progressive acceleration doesn't just save fuel, it dramatically reduces the mechanical stress your engine lives under. Think of it like this. A car engine that gets driven smoothly is like a runner who jogs regularly at a comfortable pace. The engine that gets mashed from every stoplight is like a sprinter who does nothing but full-speed intervals. One of them burns out a lot faster. The same logic applies to braking. Harsh, late braking doesn't just wear down your brake pads faster, it puts stress on your entire drivetrain. It forces your transmission and engine to absorb rapid speed changes through the driveline in ways that smooth, progressive braking doesn't. The best drivers, the ones whose cars last the longest, are almost always the ones who anticipate traffic ahead of them, who start coasting and braking early, who never need to make emergency stops unless it's actually an emergency. Their cars thank them for it in mileage and reliability. Here's something else that gets overlooked constantly: the cooling system. People think of oil as the lifeblood of the engine, and they're right. But coolant is the thing that keeps that engine from destroying itself thermally. I can't tell you how many engines I've seen that died from overheating-related damage that was completely preventable. The owner noticed the temperature gauge creeping up and thought it would settle down. It didn't. The head gasket went. Or they just never flushed the coolant, and the old, degraded coolant started corroding the inside of the cooling system, causing slow leaks and eventually a catastrophic overheat. Coolant flushes are cheap. New head gaskets are not. In Japan, coolant system maintenance is taken seriously as part of the regular service cycle, not treated as an optional extra. Fresh coolant maintains the right pH to protect metal surfaces, maintains proper heat transfer, and ensures the thermostat and water pump are working in a healthy environment. Neglect it, and you're gambling with one of the most expensive repair scenarios in all of automotive work. I also want to talk about air filters, because this is one of those things that seems almost too simple to matter, and yet it genuinely does. Your engine is essentially a giant air pump. It mixes air with fuel and burns it to make power. The quality and quantity of that incoming air matters enormously. A clogged air filter makes the engine work harder to pull in the air it needs. It affects fuel mixture, it can increase fuel consumption, and in severe cases, it allows contaminants into the intake tract. A new air filter costs almost nothing compared to any real repair. Checking it takes 2 minutes. And yet, I regularly see air filters that are so clogged with dust and debris that it's a wonder the engine is running at all. On a car that's driven in dusty environments, and let's be honest, most of us drive through construction zones, dirt roads, and heavy traffic regularly, air filters need attention more often than most service schedules suggest. This is one area where checking more frequently than required is always better than waiting. Let me bring up something that a lot of experienced mechanics and long-term car owners talk about, and that's the difference between driving a car regularly versus letting it sit. This surprises a lot of people. You'd think that a car sitting in a garage, not being driven, is being preserved. In some ways, yes, you're not adding mileage, but engines need to be run to stay healthy. When a car sits for extended periods without being started, moisture accumulates inside the engine. Seals dry out and can crack, oil drains fully away from critical surfaces, and in humid climates, rust can start forming inside the cylinders. The old taxi drivers and fleet operators knew this intuitively. A car that runs every day, even gently, is almost always in better mechanical health than one that sits for weeks between drives. If you have a second car or a seasonal vehicle that sits for months at a time, you need a plan. Either running it periodically for long enough to fully warm up and circulate everything, or taking special precautions to protect it during storage. Now, I want to address something that I think is at the heart of why so many engines die unnecessarily young, and it's this. We've been trained to think of car maintenance as reactive. Something breaks, we fix it. Something makes a noise, we investigate. But the best car owners, the ones whose Toyotas and Hondas genuinely reach 400,000 miles, think about it completely differently. They think of maintenance as a conversation with the car. They pay attention. They notice changes. They don't dismiss new sounds or new sensations as probably nothing. They check under the hood occasionally, not because something went wrong, but because they want to know what's going on before something goes wrong. They look at their oil on the dipstick, not just to see if it's at the right level, but to see what it looks like. Is it black and gritty, or is it still clean and doing its job? They notice when the car feels slightly different on a cold morning versus a warm afternoon. They're engaged with the machine in a way that makes them effective stewards of it. And this is where I think the Japanese car longevity story is most fundamentally misunderstood in the Western market. People buy a Toyota and think the car will take care of itself. And in many ways, Toyotas are incredibly forgiving. They're designed with tight tolerances, reliable engineering, and excellent factory quality control. But no engine, no matter how well built, can outlast chronic neglect. The same Toyota that lasts 500,000 miles in the hands of a disciplined owner can be ruined by 100,000 miles in the hands of someone who never changes the oil on time, never flushes the coolant, never replaces the belts, and ignores every warning light until it's too late. The engineering gives you potential. Your habits determine whether that potential is ever realized. There's one more thing I want to say before I wrap this up, and it's about attitude. The drivers whose cars last the longest almost universally have the same attitude toward their cars. They think long term. They don't think about what they can skip today to save $20. They think about what regular care today saves them from in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. They understand that a car is a major asset, and that treating it like one, investing small amounts of time and money consistently, delivers enormous returns in reliability, resale value, and avoided repair costs. They're not doing anything complicated. They're not buying exotic products or following some underground mechanic's secret protocol. They're just doing the basics, on time, every time, without exception, and paying attention to their car as a living machine that communicates with them if they're willing to listen. So here's what I want you to take away from everything we've talked about today. Engine longevity is not luck. It's not the brand you bought. It's not even primarily about which products you use. It's about when you service your car, how consistently you show up for that service, how you drive it every single day, and how early you respond to the small signals it gives you before they become big problems. The Japanese cars that reach 500,000 miles do so because somewhere in their history, someone cared enough to treat them the right way. Not dramatically, not expensively, just consistently and attentively. And here's the most empowering part of all of this. You can do exactly the same thing, starting right now with whatever car you're driving today. The habits are simple. The discipline is what most people skip. Don't be most people. If this changed the way you think about your car, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you've got a high mileage car with a story worth telling, drop it in the comments. I'd genuinely love to know what you're driving and how you've kept it alive. Take care of your car, and it'll take care of you.